one suspects that with the conditions being what they are and the weather here, as it has been over the past couple of days, so unpredictable, and the afternoon rain shower, well, perhaps the most predictable part of it, that people will be tossing coins almost in the pit lane.
Well, I think Ayrton Senna's coins turned up the right way around, because he's now, in fact, put himself onto the front row of the grid on pole position. That is only a few minutes into the session. He has recorded a 1 minute 27.144. Now, Senna, there we see, that's his Berger's car. Berger also on slicks. So, obviously, the balance now favours the dry, slick tyre. The conditions on the circuit are now sufficiently good that the dry weather slick tyre has got the advantage. Every member, every team manager in the pit will have seen that and will now be indicating either from the lap boards or over the radio, get into the pits. The track now favours the dry weather slick tyre. Come in, let's get those tyres on and go out and get a time in as quickly as possible. The sky is still very grey, still very uncertain what might happen in the next sort of 50 minutes of practice, well, 45 minutes anyway. So you've got to get your guys in as quickly as possible, get them on either the soft race tyre or, if you're really brave, put them on a qualifier.
We know the benefit because Senna's fast lap at the moment, 1:27, and JJ Leto was on 1:19 in pre-qualifying.
Yes, indeed. Now here we're in car with Senna. This is coming up to the start-finish line. Let's see what he's going to do. Can he improve upon that 1:27? Yes, easy 1:25.6. So obviously, anybody who's not in the pits changing tyres, anybody who is out on the circuit on wet weather tyres is wasting their time. They want to be out on the circuit now. Alan Prost, on his, I would call it, second proper qualifying run, he is now on race tyres, on slick race tyres. I suspect it's the soft race compound, but let's watch Alan Prost as he completes 3/4 of the lap. He's got a little bit of traffic ahead of him. Looks like Roberto Moreno and his Benetton Ford. Benetton on the Pirelli tyre, and they may still be running that hand-grooved slick tyre, which in these conditions is probably the best compromise, but Goodyear refused to do it. I don't know why, but they're prepared not to do a hand-grooved slick. They have a pure slick, a dry weather tyre or a pure wet tyre, and that's it. But Alan Prost now coming up on his second proper qualifying lap of this afternoon. Currently now in 5th spot. Bernard is actually up to 2nd place. But Prost with 1:27.402, 1:23.703, and Prost has taken pole from Ayrton Senna.
Alain Prost has kept something of a low profile over the course of the past 2 days, but he's won here 6 times, and he's just been disposed as well because Nigel Mansell has slipped in front of him, 1:22.931. As you say, it's changing every time you look at the computer.
Yes, indeed. We'll follow any one of the 30 cars here today. We could follow the pole man. Right now, Nigel Mansell's on that pole position. But by the time that gets round another lap, it'll all be changed again. And really, great fun, great excitement for us here, and of course for the viewers back home. These are the conditions that provide the most excitement and interest in qualifying, but really a major nightmare for anybody having to compete.
You can see that splash of water there. Sorry to interrupt you, but that just cuts through there. It's almost like crossing a ford on the track. You were saying earlier on that it runs downhill and washes across the track here, and there's really nothing that anybody can do about it.
No, we really need another 10 or 15 degrees of temperature, a bit of breeze, and everybody out there. I suspect by the end of this session, we're just about 25 minutes into it, and this is just John Alesi now having a proper run on qualifying tyres. But by the end of the session, if we don't have any more rain, Alesi, Prost, Mansell, Senna, Berger, Piquet, the top 4 teams, plus the Tyrrell Hondas, plus Eddie Jordan, plus the Scuderia Italia cars. And look at Alesi, absolutely on the limit. The only way that man knows how to drive, and he loves these qualifying sessions. He just loves to get in there, and conditions like this, he thrives in.
Alesi hitting traffic there, and that's probably going to slow him up. But having said that, we've been wrong so often. And look at that, 1:22.461. Alesi goes in front. He does enjoy that. He does a lot of elbow waving, which isn't really perhaps the best thing.
And Ayrton Senna has already disposed Jean Alesi. I mean, we can't even keep up. But that's the nature of the game. Wet track, which is then drying. Jean Alesi snatched pole from Senna, and within the space of 10 seconds, Senna had nicked it back again. Martin Brundle in 7th spot. That's the best performance we've seen so far from the Brabham Yamaha. Mansell second place, still behind Ayrton Senna, but of course waiting for Mansell now to come across the line. He's on the pitch straight, climbing up that long uphill incline. You see him just behind the footwork Porsche. Well, we don't see any improvement from Mansell. Yes, we have. Mansell has done a 20.056, half a second quicker than Ayrton Senna. So now Mansell back on that coveted pole position. And this car really looking extremely promising. Senna trying to, well, they've got Jean Alesi now into the 119s with a 119.819. He's in pole position, but Ayrton Senna, three-quarter way around the lap. Is this going to be good enough to get him back onto the front row of the grid? He's now in the second row of the grid. Alesi has put himself ahead of Mansell, and Mansell, of course, was ahead of Senna.
Well, the clock running on Ayrton Senna. He was looking to go in front of Mansell. Alesi sneaked in front of the pair of them. He's coming round to the line. And we'll know the answer.
I don't think it's not quite good enough. But yes, it is by 1,000th of a second. Berger coming into the pits, 1,000th of a second. I can hardly say it.
So Ayrton Senna 119.818 and Jean Alesi 119.819. Mansell, Berger, Prost and Patrese following through. And we're now getting to the area where the track is providing something like the grip that it had this morning in the dry, so we can expect perhaps from the top six even more improvements as they start thinking about new tyres.
We've got them already. Jean Alesi has deposed Senna once again with a 119.350. Bertrand Gachot in the 7-up Jordan Ford, he's into 8th spot, so things constantly changing, just moving. You could sit in the pits for 2 minutes and find yourself dropping 10 places. You've just got to be prepared to go, and if you're not out on the track, you are going to lose places. Presently in 6th place. Looking a bit purposeful, I think, Mr. Berger.
Well, he did have a very lurid spin this morning, didn't he, in the wet. But this does seem like the major effort from Gerhard Berger. He's looking to pick up on that 121. He is 6th.
Yes, well, this is Berger going for it in the biggest possible way, and let's watch him as he comes down here. He's got Moreno ahead of him, but there's just this braking zone down here before he goes left. Look at the spray. And he's got a, here we are, now we're looking at the back of Moreno's Benetton Ford, and Berger's going to catch him, and Berger has been able to get through. Moreno pulled over, let him through. This is where Berger spun this morning, over that damp patch. Ginger, really careful over that. And really, I hope we were able to contrast the driving styles of Berger and Senna, because Gerhard really has been trying so hard indeed to put himself on a par with teammate Senna, and sometimes he's been guilty, I think, of driving too hard, overdriving we call it. But not so bad. He's moderating his driving style. He's not going over the curbs as much as we've seen him previously. So Gerhard Berger coming up now to the start-finish line. He's got to beat a 119.350 to dispose Alesi. Well, he's got a 119.557. That's going to put him in second place. So Gerhard Berger now in second place alongside Jean Alesi in the front row of the grid. This is going to be interesting to watch, to see how this man maneuvers his way around Interlagos. Of course, Senna we have seen in the past with those record number of pole positions that he has attained. No fluke, and I can assure you it is not easy to do one pole position in a career. To have the 52 or so that he has had, in fact 53 pole positions in Senna's career, is truly remarkable.
He's just been deposed from second place by Gerhard Berger. Senna has 119.818 under his belt, and the man at the top of the tree, Jean Alesi, 119.350. This, when he comes round to it, could be one of those laps from Ayrton Senna.
Well, I confidently predict that Ayrton Senna will be on the pole at the end of this lap, and that he will dispose of Berger and Alesi in the process. And I hope I'm right.
definitely moving.
Yes, well, I would guess at this point it looks like something in the 118 bracket, but we have to wait. Got about another 10 or so seconds before we can confirm that situation. Yes, 118.711. Senna conclusively on the pole position. But let's not forget, we've got, well, in fact, that looks like almost the end of practice. Yes, indeed, the flag is out. Senna has done it yet again perfectly.
So after that first frantic hour of qualifying, the provisional grid overnight, Ayrton Senna and Jean Alesi share the front row. Gerhard Berger and Nigel Mansell occupy row 2, while Alain Prost and Nelson Piquet are on row 3. Row 4, Ivan Capelli and Roberto Moreno side by side. Behind them, Emanuele Pirro and Bertrand Gachot. Stefano Modena and Andrea De Cesaris are on row 6 and row 7. Satoru Nakajima and Riccardo Patrese. Eric Bernard and Maurizio Gugelmin, row 8 and row 9. JJ Leto and Aguri Suzuki. The 10th row of the grid, Eric Comas and Pierluigi Martini. Behind them, Thierry Boutsen and Martin Brundle. Brundle's teammate Mark Blundell alongside Gabriele Tarquini on row 12, and the back row, Stefan Johansson and Julian Bailey. Not making the cut, Alex Caffey, Mika Harkinen, Michele Alboreto and Gianni Morbidelli. Well, that's the end of the first qualifying. Might have done there. One of the reasons could have been the lengthy pit stop which delayed Alain Prost. They're taking it very seriously here in Sao Paulo and practicing their pit stops. But Ferrari have won here 6 times, so the odds are in their favour.
Well, the statistical point is not really in favour. Also, Ferrari won the last 2 events of the Brazilian Grand Prix. In Rio with Nigel Mansell and here in Sao Paulo last year with Prost. We hope to have a good result, but this year is very important also to always pick up points at the end of the race. So of course we shall go for a win, but we shall not be too unhappy if it happens like in Phoenix, where we get good 6 points for the championship.
Ferrari may have taken 6 points, but arch rivals McLaren took away 10 points from Phoenix. And that's despite arriving with a car which many people thought wasn't truly ready.
Critical for us, we just haven't done enough running with the car. It's the downside of bringing the car so late into racing, but I still think we're in with a good chance.
One man who hopes that they really are in with a good chance is Ayrton Senna, the world champion who has never yet won his home Grand Prix.
It's always good to be home, but it's extra pressure, of course. I like very much to win here if I can. I've been near to do it many times in the past, but for a number of different reasons we weren't able to do it. So let's hope this weekend we can do something better.
One of the teams which did really well in Phoenix was Tyrrell. This time out in Brazil, perhaps they'll be turning up the wick slightly and trying even harder.
It's not really a question of upping the revs, it's a question of the drivers having confidence in the car to be able to use the car at its best advantage, and also the engine. Really, I suppose our plan really is to beat the Benettons in Brazil, to beat the Williams in Imola. If we do that, we think we shall beat Berger, but we don't know what to do about Senna.
With that second qualifying session just moments away now, John and I have been talking about this circuit. It is challenging, John, isn't it? It's very difficult.
Well, certainly Interlagos, or the circuit now is called Jose Carlos Pache. It is a demanding circuit, but of course it's only a mere shadow of its former self. The corners past the pits here, when it was used in its entire 5-mile length, were real white knuckle jobs, but now the quickest corner on the circuit probably is a 4th gear, maybe just into 5th gear, so it doesn't have the very, very high-speed corners that it used to have, but it's still a demanding circuit, very technical circuit for the engineers, and of course the drivers have got to provide that information for the engineer to make the car work in the first place. So it's still a demanding circuit, and really it's the communication between the driver and the teams that are going to provide the best results here Saturday afternoon, and of course during the race Sunday itself.
Well, let's take a look at it in car, John, and perhaps you'll talk us round a lap.
I would be delighted, Richard. And here we are coming up to the start-finish line. At this point, Senna's McLaren is doing 186 miles an hour. Then it's hard on the brakes and straight down into 2nd gear for, in fact, Senna's corner. It's called the Curve de Senna. Then into this Curve de Sol, this long, long left-hand corner, 3rd, 4th, 5th gear now. all the way to 13,500 revs into 6th gear. This is the second quickest part of the track, and again about 186 miles an hour into 4th gear. This very difficult corner with a lake on the outside, back up into 5th, into 6th gear now. Then on the brakes into 4th for this double right-hand corner. You listen, well off the throttle, just touching the throttle, then hard on the brakes into 2nd gear for the first of these two very tight right-hand corners, holding 2nd around the left, then picking up 3rd instantly, then back on the brakes into 2nd gear. These are very slow, a lot of push in the car, understeer. 2nd, 3rd, short shifting 3rd into 4th, and holding 4th up until the final left-hand corner, back into 3rd, then hard on the throttle, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and finally into 6th gear, passing those two cars, gathering speed again, all the way up to 185, 6 miles an hour, crossing the line now.
As you can see, this is a very challenging and technical circuit. But we saw another challenge posed during Saturday morning's free practice session. Nigel Mansell, Riccardo Patrese and the Williams team showed that they're going to be a threat here in Sao Paulo. Both cars were very quick, down in the 1 minute 17 second bracket, quicker than anybody else, and that Renault V10 engine is going to be a threat. So that's the state of play in Sao Paulo at the moment, and that final qualifying session just a few moments away. Join us again after the break. 24 hours away, the weather has improved, and this second qualifying session could be very interesting indeed.
This is the section of circuit that's going to come onto the final corner before the start finish straight. And let's hope we can watch Mansell on this lap, because this is a very important time for Mansell. He has got a relatively clear track. He's going to try and take full advantage of that and get a time that'll put him on the front row of the grid. Presently Mansell back on the 3rd row of the grid alongside Prost. Mansell now beginning that lap down into the curve to Senna. This is the Senna. Oh, look at Mansell, a little bit of heavy right foot there, sliding the tail of the Williams. In the hour and a half between the session and the morning finishing and this session starting, the track conditions do change, and that's always a bit of a gamble of coming out early as we went down. Even in that 1 hour, 1.5 hour period, conditions do change. But Mansell, look, see, he ran wide coming out of the corner. He had understeer turning in. The car missed the apex. So for Nigel, this is not maybe what he would consider to be the best lap. Again, wide of the apex. The problem of qualifying tyres, of course, is to get the balance of these tyres, the front and the rears, to work at the same time. Looks to me like the rears are working better for Mansell than the fronts. But let's wait and see what happens when he comes across the start-finish line. Mansell now coming to the end of this first qualifying lap for him. Well, he's just 3/10 slower in the morning, but certainly Mansell now is on the provisional pole. 1:17.356. Go back into the pits, wait for a little while, see what the response is from his competitors, and of course he's now got the knowledge of what the conditions are like. Any adjustments to be made, he can make. But looking now, a man who would love to have pole, Riccardo Patrese, Mansell's teammate. And Riccardo Patrese was the man that really was very strong indeed in Phoenix in the Williams team, pressing Nigel Mansell very hard throughout the race and in fact throughout practice. Patrese coming around to just almost halfway around the lap. Now Patrese to me looks to be cleaner through those two corners than teammate Mansell was. Let's watch what he's like through this. This is another of the slower second gear corners. Well, a little bit wide, but probably suffering here. The wheel spin as Patrese got on the power in that low gear, punching the throttle, getting the rear wheel spinning. Now this long uphill left-hand corner, a very crucial corner here at Interlagos, the Jose Carlos Pache circuit, because that determines your top speed. So you want to get out of it clean. You don't want wheel spin. But I think Patrese is going to eclipse Mansell. Let's have a quick look and see. Well, 3/10 slower than Mansell. It looked like he was, but Patrese and Mansell on pole, Riccardo Patrese alongside him in second place. So far, Ayrton Senna has not come out. Neither has John Alesi, Gerhard Berger or Alain Prost.
Alain Prost then crossing the line at the start of his first flying lap on qualifiers. The quick man at the moment, Nigel Mansell, on 117.356, and Riccardo Patrese, 117.647. Prost has quite a lot of improvement to do from yesterday's 120.079, but conditions are completely different.
Yes, they are. The conditions, in fact, are very good. What we've been talking about is that the conditions have changed from what they were yesterday. We had a wet track on the Friday afternoon. It is now a totally dry track. The ambient temperature is much higher. And let's watch Prost through this fourth gear, double right. This is a quick corner, so the aerodynamics of the car play a big part, but this corner, a second gear corner, it's more mechanical. Now, Prost was better in that corner than the two Williams were, for example. He was able to get the front of the car into the corner, better apex, and therefore earlier on the power. Let's see here again. Yes, again, it looks better than the Williams were through that corner. So Prost is better through the slow stuff. Through the high-speed stuff, probably very even indeed.
Well, the Williams were faster this morning in the free practice in terms of top speed, and at the moment they're faster on the clock, but we'll know the answer to that as Alain Prost comes round onto the start-finish straight.
As Prost crosses the line, he's doing 186 miles an hour, by the way. Well, he's into third spot at that time of 117.8. Ayrton Senna, who has not yet been out on the track for his first run, is now down in fourth, but of course when Ayrton Senna joins the track, we do expect to see that situation alter fairly rapidly. This is John Alesi now going to go out for his first run. The movement you saw on his right hand, that is the gear change to select the gear. Of course, the Ferrari does not have a conventional gear change like everybody else has. Williams have now followed suit. They've got a similar arrangement, not quite in detail, but in principle. So the gear change is done by a little lever behind the steering wheel. The right hand changes up the gears, the left hand goes down the gears. So if you see continual flexing of the fingers, yes, you see it there very clearly of Jean Alesi, that is changing gear. There's a young Brazilian boy in the pits getting ready to get into his car, Mr. Ayrton Senna.
Gerhard going very slowly now. This is the warm-up lap for his tyres. How easy is it for him to get the tyres to come on together and to know whether he has done that in this lap?
It's pretty difficult. The teams, of course, they preheat the tyres. They've got these tyre blankets. They preheat them. And in fact, what they do is they generally heat the front tyres up to maybe 10 or 20 degrees higher than the rears. So as when the car is on the track, the balance ought to come level by the time Berger is about to come across the start-finish line. Almost now. There we go. Berger on his first qualifying lap. Just watching the sort of flurry of Berger's hands. He is a lot busier in the cockpit than Ayrton Senna. And then really, we've said this before, Berger, in a sense of almost frustration to try and go quicker, he tends to push himself and overdrive. But on a circuit like this at Interlagos, the nature of the circuit, of course, with the slightly faster corners, tends to suit him. He's more comfortable in that kind of circuit. So the differential between Senna and Berger here, I think, will be substantially less than we saw in Phoenix.
You were saying that this is a technical circuit, especially for the people setting up the car. What about for people like Berger and Senna and the rest of the drivers? Is this a hard circuit to drive?
It's frustrating because in these very slow corners, you tend to get a lot of understeer. That's the front wheels pushing. You're always struggling for a grip. And then when you do get the power on, then the back end of the car slides away. But again, Berger looked good through those two slow corners, indicating that the low-speed grip is quite good. Now, this is this uphill double left-hand corner, third gear, fourth gear, fifth, and then finally sixth, just after this next. There we are, into sixth gear now. Berger, they were the two Honda-engined McLarens were third and fourth quickest. Well, not particularly brilliant from Berger, 18.248, but enough to put him into fifth place. Now, of course, Gerhard Berger will be on the radio straight away to the team and explaining what the track conditions are like, where he felt the car didn't work well, where he had grip, where he didn't have grip. And that, of course, then can be relayed to Senna's car, and if there are any alterations that they might want to make, they can do it now. And just having said that about the modifications, we saw them, one of the engineers on Senna's car poke a screwdriver through a small slot in the nose, and that is to adjust the wing angle on the front wing on that car. And I suspect it was a little bit more front wing, in other words, a little bit more front downforce required. Emanuele Pirro's car being pushed away.
But Senna coming round to the end of this first lap where he's been bringing his tyres and himself up to operating temperature.
And there an impassive Nigel Mansell sitting. He's currently on provisional pole. He's out on the pit lane looking at the monitor, the Longines monitor. And Senna comes across the line now. His first run Saturday afternoon, out to regain that provisional pole.
Well, he's got quite an improvement to make. He's on 1:18.711 from yesterday, and the time is 1:17.356. That's Mansell, who is watching with interest. So he's got a fair way to go, but it's not by any stretch beyond his capabilities.
Not in the least. And really, when Senna has to go out and provide those starting performances, he just digs so deep into his boots. And he just drags the time out from within him, and that's that sort of inner belief, that inner confidence, self-belief which he has got. And there are times when the car has not been anything near ideal, yet he still puts it on pole. And that's really what is so remarkable about this guy.
This is very much something that comes from a driver's confidence. I think most people would probably call it bravery.
Well, look at this, Senna running very wide coming out of that right-hand corner, but now this final long uphill left-hand corner, a little bit of oversteer, the back stepping out. But this is a very purposeful effort from Senna. What the time will be, we're going to know in a few seconds' time. I think he's decided to go out there and blitz them as soon as possible. Well, 1:17.2 is just enough to snatch the pole away from Mansell. Not as quick as Mansell had this morning, but nice opening shot from Senna.
Senna, of course, is accustomed to spending a great deal of these qualifying sessions watching the monitor and waiting for his turn to respond. But here comes Nigel Mansell bringing it up to speed.
Mansell now on his second qualifying run. He was a little bit untidy through this section on his first set there. He was cleaner, less oversteer as you saw coming out. Basically a cleaner start to the lap. So let's watch him round this lap and see how the rest of it is. Remember, on the slow sections of the circuit, on his first set of tyres, I thought he had too much understeer. One of the Brabhams getting out of the way, letting him go through. Slightly more traffic for him. Prost watching his monitor. This long double right-hand corner, fourth gear. Now is Mansell better through, and we have to go back to Senna. I'd just love to see if Mansell's cleaner through those corners than he was in the first run. If he is, that'll give me some indication that this is going to be a quicker lap. Yes, a lot tidier through there than on the first run. So I think Nigel Mansell may well find himself diving into the high 1:16 on this lap. I think altogether a better lap for Mansell on the second set, but that's what you expect the second set to provide. Yes, indeed, Mansell back on the pole, high 16s, 1:16.844. And that was a good lap. I think Mansell feels fairly pleased with that one.
Half a second quicker now than Ayrton Senna.
So what is Alesi going to do on his second run? Presently in fifth place, just behind teammate Prost, on a lap of 1:18.069, and this is going to be slightly better. Yes, 1:17.6, and Alesi's deposed teammate Prost. Alesi now fourth, Prost back to fifth spot. Senna sitting there thinking, well, that's no problem, that's him out of the way, don't have to think about Jean Alesi anymore, he can't beat me.
And there it is, Patrese, Mansell, still the front row, all Williams, and still Patrese. He looked so full of confidence when I saw him yesterday in the pit lane, and he has every reason to with a performance like that. Senna, Alesi, Prost and Berger. And Berger still to come out, of course, for his second run.
Yes, and we missed Patrese's lap into the bargain. Poor Riccardo Patrese has put himself on pole position and no one even saw. So we have to wait and see what Prost is going to do.
Senna using a lot more road on this lap than he did on the first one.
Yeah, he wants to be in pole position and he's prepared to use what's there. Prost now with a 1:17.739. That's his best lap. Still in sixth spot though.
And Ayrton Senna, as you say, is having better luck with the traffic, although was that an AGS I saw in front of him?
Yes, but I think it's clear enough. It's only going to be a problem passing him up along the straight in the car. You can see from the in-car camera. And in fact, he's going into the pits. Two cars going into the pits. Had to pull a bit over to the right to avoid them, but in fact, this looks like a pretty impressive lap from Senna. Yeah, 16.3. Senna has the pole, and that's where he wanted to be.
Well, the checkered flag has gone for the end of this qualifying session, and unsurprisingly, the stands erupt. Ayrton Senna pulls into the pits at the end of a victorious lap. 1:16.392 to snatch pole position from Riccardo Patrese, 1:16.775, who shares the front row with him. Row 2, as we say, is also McLaren and Williams. This time it's Nigel Mansell and Gerhard Berger. The third row of the grid is all scarlet. It's Ferrari, Alesi and then Prost in that order. On the fourth row, Piquet and Gugelmin. Nelson Piquet for Benetton Ford, Mauricio Gugelmin for Leighton House. That's a good effort for them. Stefano Modena and Bertrand Gachot are on the next row, and the Jordan team have qualified very well. Bernard and Pirro on the row behind, De Cesaris and Moreno. Then it's Ivan Capelli and Satoru Nakajima, and then Aguri Suzuki and Thierry Boutsen, the Ligier 18th quickest. JJ Leto, with all those problems, was 19th fastest, and Pierluigi Martini is alongside him. Then it's Gianni Morbidelli and Mika Hakkinen, who has drifted backwards through today's qualifying session. And the back rows, Comas and Tarquini, and the two Yamaha just scraping. Mark Blundell, Martin Brundle right at the back of this grid, and they have made the cut. Unsurprisingly, after what we have seen over the past couple of days, Alex Caffey and Michele Alboreto, a very troubled weekend for footwork. They don't make it. Neither does Stefan Johansson or Julian Bailey.
Well, the race, I think, is going to be even closer because we don't have anything for qualification, for qualifying specification. What we put on the table in qualifying is what we can put on the table for the race. And I think other teams like McLaren, Ferrari, they have something more for qualifying. So I think in the race we are going very well.
So that really is the sharp end of the grid, and no mistake about it. In 10th spot, though, sits the brand new Jordan Ford of a very delighted Bertrand Gachot, pleased with his 10th spot on the grid.
Bertrand, you must be feeling pretty pleased with yourself.
Well, with myself, no, with the team, and because it's a team effort. You know, the 7-Up Jordan team has done a great job and has given me a car which I can do something. And for me, being in the top 10 is really good. It's the first time, and I'm happy.
When we spoke in Phoenix 2 weeks ago, you said that you expected this car to deliver its potential in Brazil. Do you think that it's done that to the full?
Not to the full. Again, it's a very new car. We don't have a lot of data, informations about it. We need to learn about it, to learn every detail, to take the best of it. And so far, we just simply didn't have the time to do it. Give us a little bit more time and we'll get the best out of it. Also, on a driving point, it was a good lap, but it was not perfect. So, you know, you have to work on it. When you see someone like Senna doing this lap, and you can see that he gets the best out of it. I don't know if I'm getting the very best that I could, so I need to work also on it. But it's very enjoyable to drive a car as competitive.
So Bertrand Gachot pleased with 10th spot, and Ayrton Senna pleased with pole.